microphone. All right. I have a presentation, and there are several agendas which I would like to address to auditory today. And I feel obligation that I have to introduce myself to everyone, although I know that many of you here may know me. My name is Andriy Savchenko. I'm a master mariner. I graduated from Odessa State Marine Academy, that's the name back at that time, in 1994. I joined CNCo in February 2004, and I in command since 2005. And up to date, basically, I've served on most of the type of ships in China navigation, except for old Era-1, old Airedale, and the nowadays this T-class or all these T-class that's I've been sailing on those. And I'm now in command on the ships on the NPP fleet. And introducing myself, I also would like to now say something which some of you may not probably like or may not agree with. Basically myself, I was raised in the family with the maritime background. My father is an ex-seafarer, and he spent almost 40 years at sea. And literally, I started sailing probably in the age of 8. And every year until I joined the academy, I spent at least several weeks on board the ships. So I'm saying that because I know what the master's authority and power, what the chief engineer authority and power was back 30, 40 years ago. And this is a copy of my certificate of competency, and the reason I'm showing it is this management level. In the past, we had ships flying British flag, Australian flag, Croatian flag, New Zealand flag. The students were coming out from different countries, and they were raised under the national standards. They were following those standards, and the level of competency was very high. So those days, back in 1980s, we were not talking about the management. Those who have a strong remembrance of on the past days, we were not talking about the leadership or risk assessments or anything like that we are talking now. We were talking about probably health and safety. There was SOLAS, MARPOL, Hagen Visby rules. Very simple those days. Now, time has changed. Whether we like it or not, I probably, somewhere inside me, may not like it because I was raised in the old traditions. And somewhere here I'm standing on old traditions, but we have to accept the reality, what is happening nowadays. And what is happening nowadays? Look at the cadets coming on board the ship. New Zealand cadets, UK cadets. Where are they taking the experience now? Not from the British officers anymore. Not from the New Zealand officers anymore. Ukrainian cadets are now learning from the Chinese masters, Filipino chief engineers, Croatian masters, Montenegrin chief officers, and so on. Things has completely changed, and we have to accept it. So now we're going to the level of management. If you remember, that was introduced back in, I think, in late 90s when the ISM code came up. So now it's a different. We are a part of the old understanding of role of the master and chief engineer. We are also now managing risks, managing people. So the topics that I have prepared, I will be talking from the point of view of the managing. Risk management. This is not going to be a long presentation of what we are learning from the safety awareness course, no. I will just try to look at the process from the little bit different point of view, and I will show you a little bit of statistic, and I will share with my observations, which probably coincide with yours. Maybe we'll have a little bit of talk. So the risk management, I just put it here, the bringing the whole process together. The reason of this topic is that if you carefully look at the 4-box or alert, safety alerts, now we call it now safety alerts, which is coming out on the fleet, very often it starts, the toolbox meeting was conducted correctly, the risk assessment was done correctly, and etc., etc. Very often nowadays we have the explanation, but nevertheless near misses has happened and the accidents take place, and sometimes even the LTI takes place. Just very briefly, which very important, the process of risk management. I'm not talking the risk assessment, risk management. 4 areas: hazardous identification, risk assessment, risk control, and performance monitoring. So now I'm just showing you, this is the extract of the statistic, the second half of this year. The highest bar is the lack of knowledge. Where is the knowledge coming from? Experience, reading, books, etc. School, that's right.
Training center.
Training, correct. So it all depends on the background. What is the quality of training they receive? If we convert it and apply to the China navigation, if we are talking of the junior officers who arised from the cadets, where they took the training from us. The next one is not focusing on task, which I think is very much connected to the improper motivation. People not motivated. If you look at also the statistic, very often the more near misses they happen to the ratings rather than the officers. But nevertheless, these two things are connected. Now, the next one, which is very important, very interesting, this is the statistics that I have back from 2014. Now look at this slice. 42% lack of knowledge. Next one, 32% improper motivation. But I have to tell that back that time we didn't have 50 ships. But nevertheless, you see these two things, they still exist. Lack of knowledge and proper motivation. Now I want to stress you on the motivation. Why motivation? What is the motivation? The reason I picked it up is because there was several months ago there was one of the safety campaign, and from the office they went up with the very good things, which I will later tell you. The motivation is the reason for people's action, desires and needs. Motivation is also one's direction to behavior, or what causes a person to want to repeat a behavior. So basically this is the extract from the Wikipedia, I think. So motivation. So people are not motivated to work in some way. Of course, you may say they get paid wages and overtime and etc., etc., but probably it doesn't work 100% if we still have those near misses and the statistic that I've shown you. So I picked it up that a very good tool which we may use motivating people, apprising them for the safely done job. We are talking about the safety. But needless to say that whenever they did a good job, we say, yeah, great, good job, very quick, nice. Here is the beer. Okay, guys, come on the bar, I'll give you the beer. But we never ever, I'm pretty sure, I'm confident, we never ever say people, guys, I saw you did the job, right exactly as per plan, as per the toolbox meeting, was very safe, goggles in place, this safety harness, great, very safe. Thank you very much for the safely done job. So I'm just calling you to get a habit to apprise your subordinates for the safely done job. Why I'm telling this? Because I tried it. It works well. So just obtain the habit. Another one statistic is, sorry, the quality isn't very good. Failure to follow procedure. interesting one. Inadequate work standards followed by inadequate supervision. Now let's go back 3 years. The biggest slice in the statisticate, 39%, inadequate work standards, followed by the inadequate supervision. The work standards are set partly by our SMS. Okay, company sets the work standards which we have to follow. The supervision comes, which is obviously a weak point in the risk management, to my understanding. Performance monitoring of the risk management comes along with the supervision. If we have made the risk assessment, identify all the hazards, then supervision, 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 and supervision. So basically, what does the statistic says if we just come down on the ship? It says that the responsible officer is doing a very good job to prepare the risk assessment. He probably sits down at the desk with his subordinates, discuss, and he say, okay, this is the risk assessment, what are the hazards, just copy it from the risk assessment. So the first two parts, which I have said in the beginning, works well. We are very well trained now on this. But we are now obviously failing to supervise the job. So I want you to see and encourage your subordinates, not just tick or even work out the toolbox and the risk assessment, just throw it to the AB and say, okay, there you are, you have a risk assessment, toolbox meeting completed, you're on your own. No, we are lack of supervision. The process isn't completed. If it isn't completed, sooner or later, which we unfortunately had in the past, it will turn out in the Swiss cheese accident. These are hazards, risk assessment, supervision, performance monitoring. These are two obviously failing now. Okay? If at one stage one of these two failed, booms, severe near miss or accident. Okay? Now, the next one, performance evaluation. That was, yesterday we had a presentation about the performance evaluation. I am not aware of the new format of the performance evaluation. However, what I'm going to say will probably assist you, I'll put it that way, assist you to understand the importance of the performance evaluation. The reason I put this picture on, look at these soldiers. You see how much equipment they carry. Plenty. So obviously the military spent the huge amount of money to train them, to use all this in the combat, right? So imagine, would the military afford to lose one of these soldiers? I'm not talking about the combat or the mortal cases, just one of them say, I'm leaving, okay? Probably not. Same in China navigation. We are not throwing people just like this. We are sitting here, these 2 days, this is the investment. Money have been invested in our knowledge to raise our safety culture. Same, you know, we have the meetings in Manila, a part of the safety awareness course. We have meetings in China, in PNG, and so on, so on. These are all investments. Leadership courses. We are all, many officers attending cargo securing courses. If you think this is the investment, the company is investing in us. So obviously, not the case that they will just, okay, off you go, we don't need you. No, no. But how they will judge the performance of the whole fleet staff? Performance evaluation. We do the performance evaluation. I believe that performance evaluation should not be about either you stay with us or off you go. It should come to identify weak points and the strong points of the person being assessed. Back about 3 years ago, I was asked by the SPSM to investigate a couple of the bad reports which were written on the Ukrainian officers, and just to find out what is the reason behind the bad reports, whether the person can be given a second chance and so on. The first thing which the person was told me when I said, "Captain, I wasn't aware I was going to have a bad report. Until I was signing off, I came to the captain's office and I saw that all 5 months I did a bad job." Never ever captain mentioned this to me during my tenure. I think I investigated around three cases, all 3 cases in a row. That's the first thing what I was told. I don't think it's a fair treatment in the first place. So, as a senior officers, we are the one who do the performance evaluation, as it was told yesterday, on which the office relies to see whether they have to invest or watch the fleet staff. So, as I said, performance evaluation reports should show strong and weak points of the person being assessed. Another thing is, I would suggest to practice a mentor assessment. Although I must say that to write the performance evaluation report and to see it in front of the person, even if you have to say something bad, is not a very easy task. I fully understand this. Many people, they feel very uncomfortable to say it and say, second mate or second engineer, something is good, but actually, you're not doing very well. They don't like to hear from the opposite party, "Yeah, why, I'm a hard worker, I'm this and that, that's you are a bad captain, you're a bad chief engineer." Basically, they predict, they think, they foresee this may happen, and they just more quite happy to say, yeah, okay, just let it go. And then the next captain or next chief engineer or the next ship and see, how can we employ this guy? He is not doing this, or he is good in this but not in this. Who actually gave him a good report? And you send a message to the office and say, this ETO, for example, he's not doing anything. And then the office came back, "Chief, we had 3 good reports on this ETO in a row. Sorry, something wrong with you." Is that right? So obviously someone didn't do a proper job. Wasn't fair. And in first instance, he wasn't fair to his colleagues. Okay. The next one, do not use the performance evaluation report as a tool to get even with subordinate. I'm talking about the personal relationships. That was one of the cases that I investigated. The captain and the chief officer, they didn't get along during the trip. There were some personal issues. And finally, the captain, he just said, "You're bad," end of story. Try to be fair and objective. Just put your personality, personal relationships aside, unless they actually affect the safety of the ships. This isn't fair treatment of your subordinate. And of course, be objective and fair. That's what was told, as we were told yesterday in the presentation. We tend to forget what happened back 2, 3, 5, 6 months, and we usually tend to record the events or the performance of the person just last several weeks. It's not correct. Next one is feedback. When I joined the China Navigation, my background, like many of you, I work with the management companies where the system was that your job is to load the cargo or fix the engine, and we don't want to hear from you anything. We just paid you to keep the spanner in your ass, that's it. In China Navigation, I found things different. The office, and you probably got the message from all the presentations from today or from the safety awareness course, office wants to hear a feedback from the fleet staff, and particularly from the top 5, from the management, on-board management. You may not get straight answer, yeah, good, thanks for your feedback or something. No, but believe me, somewhere this message has got its place in the office, and sooner or later, that's my personal experience when I went up with different suggestions, and then later 3 years, oh, that's what I was suggesting. Time will come up for the suggestion. But do not confuse the feedback with complaints. Because we tend, probably myself, we tend to complain. This is not good and this is not good. Why they did this, why they did this. Why they did this, them, there is always the reason. You have always understand there is always the reason for something. If you are really in doubt, you may ask, why we are doing this? But if you, I'm not saying if you don't like something, but if you see something which is strange or probably comfortable, you see that may not be applicable, be constructive and suggest. If you criticize, suggest. Criticizing is very easy, but suggesting, saying, okay, this is your proposal, this works well, but I'm in doubt, this may work. I don't think this will work. My suggestion is, can we change, can we do this, can we implement this? Document, send in the office. This is a constructive feedback. And believe me, I'm sure they like to hear this. Sooner or later this will work. And this is the way the China navigation traditionally works. If you see, most of the technical management, they are all ex-chief engineers. They know, we are talking on the same language if you wish. Now, luckily we have the crewing and safety management, all ex-captains, chief engineer, port state control inspection background. We are now talking on the same language. Another thing, I think it's the last one. Another thing, this is what we lack in the company, mentoring. And actually, you know, I started my presentation telling that we have cadets from the different backgrounds. If you go back to 40 years ago, I'm sure many of you who are age of 50 plus, you were probably mentoring by your countrymen, Croatian captains, Croatian chief engineers, Ukrainian captains, Ukrainian chief engineers. This is where you got your experience. But now, as I said, the shipping industry has changed completely. And if we are looking at ourselves as being a long-term employees, we have to implement the mentoring. And also, believe me, mentoring also is a very, very good motivation. Do not look at the nationalities. Very often what I'm seeing, there is a very strong selection of the nationalities. The ETO of one nationality may likely not to mentor or train the ETO of a different nationality. Very often what I'm seeing, and so on and so on. Break it. As if you look at the sustainable report, which was presented in the safety awareness course, we have a very high retention rate now, until now. Is it 80% for the fleet staff or 90%? 91% of the fleet staff. What does it mean? That means 9 people of 10, correct, will come back to the company. So all of us will see each other next month and next year and in 5 years. So you will see your third mates, third engineers, bosuns, AB, motormen, and etc., etc. So do the mentoring. As I said, mentoring is a very good motivation. Second, mentoring is a good tool. When you teach, you learn. Another thing is, when you mentor, you share your knowledge, you share your experience, and finally you can go and sleep well. And you know that the person there, he is getting what you want, and you are kind of, you know that he's getting to the highest level. This is the professionalism. This is where it comes from. And I'm not saying about the most important things when it comes to the promotion. If you see the report, the captain, first time in command, he did this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. And who showed him who did it right? Or chief engineer. First time he failed to do this, he couldn't see this. Who showed him? Back in school, when we are all changing license, these professors, they are not telling us how to run the ship or to run the main engine. We may teach them nowadays. But mentoring is different. I would strongly recommend just to have this tradition, if you wish, implemented on our ships, regardless, as I said, regardless of nationality. And once we have the tradition, then you would know the next captain you take over, the next chief engineer, second engineer you take over, same standards. Of course, standards are set by company, but the perception, the culture will be the same. Because when you mentor, you share the best of your knowledge. And I think that's it. Yeah. So, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.